So this game took place last year. It was an online pay-to-play game that I joined because I really loved the dark world of Curse of Strahd. I DM'd the game once before, but really wanted a player's perspective because I honestly like playing more than DMing. I decided to play a basic neutral good half-orc battlemaster fighter. Then there was a chaotic good halfling bard, a neutral good wood elf druid, a true neutral half-elf ranger, and a chaotic neutral human variant rogue. So we started session 1 playing through the Death House. For those of you who are not familiar with Curse of Strahd, Death House is like an optional tutorial to get players comfortable with the mood and setting of the world, and also level them up to level 3. Session 1 goes by with no problems. We all have a great time and get through probably 75% of the house. 1 week later, the next session starts, and the first hour passes easily. We finish the Death House and begin wandering around the first village. Things begin to go badly when we go into the village shop. Behind the counter is an angry old man who is trying to overcharge the party. The druid and bard try to reason with the old man, but it doesn't work. That's when someone in the party notices to one side of the shop are large glass cases. Inside there's a staff, longbow, sword, and a dagger. All of these weapons are literally glowing with magic, as the DM described them. The old man says that these are his prized possessions and that each weapon is several hundred gold. He also mentions,
"Please, do not touch the glass. It's enchanted to sound an alarm."
Then goes back to talking to the druid and the bard. Suddenly the rogue player tells the DM,
"I want to sneak over and pick the lock on the case."
The DM says, "Okay, roll stealth check." It's a 2. The old man sees the rogue and loses his mind. He begins screaming for his nephew from the back room. The nephew comes in, and DM describes him as a giant of a man who is rippling with pure muscle. The DM asks, "Rogue, do you want to try to defuse the situation?" Rogue player replies,
"No, I ignore everything and continue picking the lock."
He then fails his check to pick the lock. At this point, the DM calls for initiatives, as the nephew is ordered to beat us senseless and throw us out of the shop. The druid and bard try to restrain the nephew with both magic and strength. Rogue is still continuing to try to pick the lock, and failing. The ranger then escalates the situation by jumping over the counter of the shop and grappling the old man before putting a knife to his neck. The ranger then commands the nephew to stop fighting. The old man starts screaming in terror and calls for his nephew to take us out for good. I waste my turn role-playing my fighter, who is begging the rest of the party to lay down their weapons and just leave. The next round, nephew downs the bard. The druid also takes a lot of damage, but survives and runs out of the shop. The rogue fails yet again to get the magic items. The ranger then cuts the old man's throat and moves over to help the rogue. I rush over to help the old man, luckily rolling a nat 20 to save his life. The nephew rushes the ranger in a rage and downs him. Rogue finally pops the lock on the case, causing an alarm to go off. Bard and ranger both failed their first death saves. I stand up, ready to leave the other two to their fate, but instead decide to grab a health potion off a nearby shelf and heal the old man just to be sure he survived. On the final round, the nephew tries to kill the rogue, but doesn't manage. The rogue snatches up the magic dagger and runs out of the shop. The bard rolls a 1 on a death save and dies, while the ranger rolls a nat 20 and hops up and moves out of the shop. I also finally run out of the shop, and at that point the DM calls for our session to end. We only played 2 out of our 4 hours. The bard player logs off immediately, saying nothing to the rest of us, while the druid player and I argue with the rogue and ranger players who refuse to acknowledge that they did anything wrong. The DM then kicks us all from the Discord and messages us individually that he was disbanding the group because he didn't see how we could continue working together as a group. So if you're wondering if OP got their money back, yes, they did get a refund for that session. It's a shame that some people are just not the best teammates. Greed corrupts many, so it's important to pick and choose your battles. I really appreciate OP helping the old man in all that chaos, but what do you guys think about all this?